everybody, and welcome to my review of a movie that surprisingly not too many people have heard about, Hereditary. Hereditary is a new horror film directed by first-timer Ari Aster, and it stars Toni Collette, who plays an artist whose mother has just passed away, and together with her husband, played by Gabriel Byrne, they're trying to keep their family together in this time of grief. But things kind of start going all to hell when it's discovered that Grandma had a few secrets to keep and wasn't quite the person they thought she was. So look, when this movie was announced and everything, I saw the trailer and I thought, okay, it looks alright, but I don't know, it didn't really grab me that much, and it was probably one of those movies, look, I might not have even bothered going to see it, to be honest. But then the reviews started coming out and holy cow, they were phenomenally positive. I mean, people were giving it nearly perfect grades, and they were comparing it to a lot of the movies from the 70s, the classic horror films. I mean, let's face it, these days, every time a new horror film comes out, I'm kind of getting sick of seeing the press blurbs where they say this movie is compared to The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby and The Omen, and this is the next big thing that's going to terrify audiences all around the world and blah, 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 blah. And then you go see the movie and it's like, yeah, no, you really missed the mark with that one. I mean, admittedly, over the years, like, horror films have started getting gradually better. I mean, the Conjuring films were largely quite good. We've had things like Lights Out, Don't Breathe, the sequel to Ouija and Annabelle, like, they were actually really good films. And there has kind of been this gradual return to old school horror. So this movie was no different. I mean, all the press blurbs were saying the same sort of thing, and so I went in with a bit of a grain of salt. Not to mention the usher who took our tickets was saying that a lot of people were walking out of the film really disappointed, so I just had no idea what to expect. But let me tell you, without question, everything you've heard about this movie, putting it up there with the greatest horror classics of all time, is totally justified. This movie is incredible. And there's a lot of reasons why I would put it up there with those kind of movies that I'll get into. But for starters, look, I've got to say straight off the bat, it's not going to please everybody. I mean, my friend who I went with, she liked it. She didn't love it. She found it was a little bit dragging in places. And it is a slow burning movie, but there's reasons why I loved it, and yeah, I'll get to that soon, but this movie is definitely another one of these divisive movies that is splitting the internet in half. I mean, God, we've got so many of those lately. But yeah, I mean, I'm reading a lot of things from people who are saying that they didn't like it, and then people who loved it are saying, no, you're wrong, and there's big arguments going on all over the place. So yeah, it's not going to please everybody. But in my opinion, look, the reasons I love this movie so much and why I didn't mind it being such a slow moving film is because it really reminded me of the Asian horror films that I am obsessed with. I mean, I love Asian horror films because not only do they just build up the tension and creepiness and offer you really disturbing images, but they just put you in a place you don't want to be in. With Hereditary, watching this film, I just felt uncomfortable. I just felt uneasy, like things weren't right. And the whole breakdown of the family dynamic in this film really hammered that home. I mean, the tension going on between all the characters just added to the horror. This movie works on so many levels. It's a horror movie in terms of it, yeah, it's got enough blood and gore that's going to appease the gore hounds. There are some really seriously disturbing images in this film that even after one screening, I am never going to forget the stuff that I've seen. But at the same time, it also just has that unease and tension going through from what's going on with the characters. And it just works on the level of horror in so many ways. The performances in this movie, it is hard to believe that it was from a first-time director. Toni Collette, the performance she delivered in this film was extremely emotional. It was almost over the top in a couple of places, but not to the point of being ridiculous. Gabriel Byrne, I thought, was great as this guy who's put into this situation where he's really skeptical of what's going on and doesn't really know how to deal with what's going on in his family. And the two kids played by Millie Shapiro and Alex Wolff. Millie Shapiro, look, if you've seen the trailers, you know what I'm talking about when I say this kid looks weird. I don't know what is going on with her, but she was, that was some of the most brilliant casting I've ever seen, because even just the look of this kid makes you feel uneasy. But she was absolutely fantastic in her performance. There's so many times these days where child actors just, don't quite deliver, but no, she was absolutely great. And the movie definitely doesn't rely on cheap, quick scares either. It's the kind of thing that there are a few moments in the film where you're looking at a darkened room and just in a corner you sort of think you can see something, but you're not 100% sure. And when you kind of make out what it is, and then you're just like, oh no. And it just lingers there. There's no things jumping out at you or anything like that. It's just that stuff that you're looking at something thinking, what's it gonna do? And there was also a cool technique where a lot of the times when there's something horrific, it'll focus on the characters first and their reactions to it, and it'll stay on them for quite a bit of time before it comes around to what they're looking at. And I just thought that really accentuated how bad the thing is that you're looking at, rather than seeing something bad and then it cuts to someone screaming. They really got it right this time. This movie also really delivered in terms of cinematography and editing. In terms of the camera work, there was some really creative and inventive camera techniques and angles. And I love some of the editing choices they made as well. In terms of like going from night to day, you'll have like a shot of the house from the outside at night, and then it'll cut straight away to daytime. And yeah, they did that a couple of times with different things throughout the film, and I just thought it was, something different. And I have to applaud the script for this film. It's not one of these movies like your typical Hollywood horror films that delivers all the information in like the first 10 minutes and then you watch it play out till the end. This movie keeps you guessing throughout. It really, like, for me, I was sitting there just trying to kind of figure out exactly what this movie was about and what was really going on. And it's not till the third act where all the pieces that have been set up fall into place, and the ending of this movie is so freaking brilliant. I mean, yeah, once this movie is over, you can really understand why it's being compared to the likes of The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby. It was just so mind-blowing. And for me personally, I found it terrifyingly scary. I really did. I mean, I spent a lot of this movie slouched down in my seat, clenching my knuckles in front of my face because I was really scared. And it's that lingering sense of dread that comes home with you long after you've seen the film, where, you're just feeling uneasy about walking through your darkened house, and anytime you hear a little noise somewhere, you're just like, okay, this is how it ends. And there hasn't really been a movie that's done that for me in a long, long time. I mean, a lot of the other horror films that I mentioned before that have been coming out over the last few years, like, yeah, they've been great and they've really, done well in layering the tension and delivering good scares, but I've never really had that feeling of coming home and just not wanting to be alone. And it's also the kind of film you're going to be thinking about for a long time afterwards, because there are a lot of little clues and little things in there that really make you think afterwards. Again, I'd never give any spoilers on this channel, of course. But yeah, if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. Things that happen throughout the film that you kind of thinking, well, hang on, what did that actually mean? So I'm probably going to be checking out a few analysis videos of this film on YouTube, I think, because, there's a few things that I've got theories, but I need to know more. Now, here's the thing. Like, I saw this movie night before last. It's taken me this long to sit down and do this review. A, because when I got home from seeing it, there was no way I could sit in front of a camera. I was absolutely rattled. I said to a guy after the movie that it felt like I'd been on a roller coaster non-stop 10 times in a row. It just drained me so much. I even had a slight tension headache from this film. You know how a lot of typical Hollywood horror movies, they build up tension, but then they have that big boo scare and, you have that feeling of relief. This movie never does that. There's no jump scares in this film. It builds up the tension, but it leaves you hanging there. And seriously, afterwards, I honestly had a little bit of a headache from how much it had built it up. But aside from that, I just wanted to give it a day or so just to kind of think, like, was there anything in this film I didn't like? And honestly, no, there's not. This is as perfect a horror film as we're probably going to see in a very long time. I implore Hollywood screenwriters to watch this film and pay attention to how a good horror film is made. Hereditary definitely deserves its place up there with the horror classics from the 70s and 80s, etc. And I am happily going to give Hereditary a 10 out of 10. Alrighty, so over to you guys. Have you seen Hereditary, or are you going to see it? And in terms of the recent horror films over the last few years, what have been some of your favorites? And like I said, Hereditary is definitely not going to please everybody, so just take all the things in mind before you make up your mind to go see it. If you're more of a fan of your typical Hollywood horror films, and there is nothing wrong with that, you know, maybe think twice about it. But if you have seen Hereditary, I would love to know what you thought of it, so drop me some comments either here or on Facebook. All the social media links are in the description below, because I like to talk about movies, and I would love to talk about movies with you. I'll catch you next time.
Click subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest movie reviews. Skynet will be taking over any day now, so what have you got to lose? Nyah.